Hello, and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand. I just started it too early, didn't I?
No, it's fine actually.
Oh, okay. Mine
Keep
just went
going.
live. All right, it's another flubbed introduction here because Lindsay's running the Hangout this week. But hello again, and welcome to the podcast again, in case that was cut off. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole, and Joe is out of town this week, or not out of town, but he had something he had to go to, so I'm pushing the buttons, and so far it's, well, you can tell how it's going. But fortunately, we have a good guest for you here this week, so I will let him do most of the talking and not mess things up too badly. It is Ferol Vernon, the Chief Operations Officer for Written Word Media, and you guys are probably more familiar with the sites they run, FreeBooksy and BargainBooksy. And if you haven't heard of them, let me go ahead and switch over to Ferol. And do you want to tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. So thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And I can give you kind of the quick version. Written Word Media is a media company that runs 5 websites, of which, as you mentioned, FreeBooksy and BargainBooksy are probably the 2 that we're best known for. We also run newinbooks.com, which is a site all about new releases, which is sort of targeted at people who pay full price for books. And we also run Red Feather Romance and ayearofbooks.net. And those sites are sort of an erotic romance site for Red Feather, and ayearofbooks.net is our way of following Mark Zuckerberg on his 2015 New Year's resolution to read a book every 2 weeks. So Written Word Media runs websites that are focused at readers, and I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit more about it with you today.
All right, cool. And were you part of the startup, or did you come on later onto the site?
So yes, the company is run by my wife and I. We are partners in life and partners in business as well, and we have 3 full-time employees that work with us. And so my wife started it a few years ago, and then about a year ago, I left the music industry, which is where I was before, to join her and grow this company. And now we are here with you today.
All right, well, that's cool that she started it and was able to turn it into a full-time income, it sounds like, for her and yourself. It's always the
Yeah,
dream.
we definitely feel like we're living the dream.
All right, and could you tell us kind of, just because I know some of our listeners are very new, maybe just finishing their first novels, could
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about probably the 2 main sites, FreeBooksy and BargainBooksy, and what they offer both for readers and authors?
Sure, absolutely. So for readers, the concept is very simple. You know, you sign up for FreeBooksy, you give us your genre preferences, what genres you like to read, your device preferences, whether you prefer, a Kindle or if you've got a Nook, and then we send you a daily newsletter with free books in your genre of choice. BargainBooksy operates much the same way, except the books are bargain. They're under $5, and typically they're 99 cents, a dollar, something like that. And so for a reader, it's a free service. You sign up, you get book recommendations and whatever your favorite genre is every day. And then for authors, what we do is we offer featured slots. So if you're trying to get the word out about your book and you're willing to make it free or discount it under $5, as long as it passes our editorial review, we'll run the book in the newsletter, and you can sort of jumpstart your promotion that way.
All right, as Jeff has logged in like 3 times right now, we're having all sorts of fun tech issues today, guys.
That's all right.
That's Hilton for you. Sorry about that.
At least it's not raining in your room. Apparently he was in a monsoon earlier, so. All right, but okay, could you tell me with the websites, I would say that from the perspective of an author, they're definitely up there, like with the kind of top 3 or 4 that we actually like to submit to because we see results. There's a lot of them out there that they will charge you money, but you may not get the downloads you're hoping for. Is
Sure.
there anything you think that's different about yours, or have you just been around for a while to sort of gain some traction?
Well, yeah, I think certainly we have been around for a little bit, and being around helps. And I think the reason it helps is because we've built a lot of relationships with authors, and it's really heartwarming to hear that you guys like the service and that you see results from it.
Oh, absolutely.
And we do a lot of analysis to make sure that our prices are fair for authors and that most people see a return. And so, I think that policy of ours of not raising prices before we think it's worth it has really served us well. And we also, we do have an editorial guidelines that it has to pass in order for us to run the book, but they're very indie author friendly. one of the problems that indie authors tend to have is it's like, well, I don't have any reviews yet, or I haven't done this, or I haven't done that. And a lot of the other sites out there are going to, ask you for a certain number of reviews, and if you're saying, hey, well, if I'm just getting started, how am I supposed to get those first reviews? And so we really like to be pretty indie author friendly. We really focus on making sure that we deliver results, and I think that that's really served us well.
Yeah, I've definitely spoken to authors that, and I remember how it was with my first book too. Like, once you've been established for a while, getting 10 reviews is no big deal. That's sort of the minimum for a lot of sites. But when you're just trying to hope, maybe get a reader or two a week, it can be a challenge to get those early reviews.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the main reason we wanted to have you on here is kind of so we could pump you for information on like what you guys are seeing, what's really working well to sell books.
Sure.
And also, we'll go into some of the pricing stuff you've discovered there, because I know one of your coworkers, I guess Taylor is her name?
Yeah.
She posted on Kboards a link to a site that she'd put together with graphs and stuff, like which price point was best. So let me go ahead and just ask first off, kind of overview, since I know you guys see a lot of books, and I assume you track the clicks and maybe purchases through affiliate links. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts just as to what makes one book perform better over another, given similar genres and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that obviously that's a question that we hear all the time. Chloe, who runs our customer service department, probably hears that. That's probably the most common thing that she hears is like, what advice can you give me for making sure that my book does as well as possible? And there's a couple of things that you can do. Some certain amount of it is out of your control. Some people like books, some people don't, and that you kind of have to ignore. But it's really no surprise, but one of the biggest things is the design of your cover. And we did a piece on this a couple months ago, I think, at this point. But cover design is really important. And there's the joke about don't judge a book by its cover, but readers do. Readers, especially ones who are looking online, they use the cover as a way to sort of determine the quality of the book. So one recommendation that we give is if you're using clip art for your cover, or you're using a really cheap solution, do some other things. Try to talk to a book cover designer. There's some other services out there that are pretty decent. But spend some time on your cover. I know that a lot of authors that we talk to are really passionate about their writing, and they should be. But getting a cover designed is a really important piece of the whole process. So that's important. One of the other things that we found is that doing your cover, making it good is important, but also making it consistent with your genre. So sci-fi and fantasy books have a certain look to the cover, and you don't want the cover to look like a romance book or to look like a children's book or something like that. You're gonna give people the wrong impression. So I think quality is important, but also not straying too far outside of your genre's norms in terms of font, color, stuff like that. You don't want, if you're writing a horror book, you don't want lots of pinks and pastels. It's not going to perform well. So I think that the two things I'd say is focus on the quality of your cover. Stay within the guidelines kind of your genre. And then I think, the other thing that we've found authors to be really successful as when they stack their promotions. So for example, we run a lot of reading sites, but there's a lot more out there. There's book signings, there's other stuff you can do. Amazon, for better or for worse, rewards lots of sales in a short period of time. And so if you bunch your promotion in a short period of time, you buy a FreeBooksy feature for book 1 in your series, you buy a BargainBooksy feature for book 2 in your series, you do them on the same day. Maybe you also do something in person. You really spend the day marketing yourself on social media instead of writing. That really tends to work, and it is a lot of work to coordinate, and it's hard to get all that stuff set up. But every time we talk to authors who've done it, it really does work out well for them.
I am definitely a fan of doing that myself. I have one starting tomorrow, so definitely seems to be your best shot of actually sticking, especially on Amazon. But to some extent, Barnes & Noble too. If you manage to sell quite a few in a short period, they actually seem to remember your book for a little while afterwards.
Yeah, the Amazon algorithm and the Barnes & Noble too. I mean, it's tricky, right? I mean, everybody's trying to figure out exactly what goes into it. And we've put a lot of analysis into trying, optimizing our stuff for the algorithm as well. But at the end of the day, they're never going to publish it. They're always going to change it. So you got to just do the best you can.
Yeah, I'm usually surprised when something actually does work exactly as I'm hoping it will. I didn't ask you this ahead of time, so I don't know if you have this information, but just as
Sure.
I was listening to you talk about covers, I'm curious if in science fiction and fantasy, since that's most of our listeners are authors in those genres, have you seen any elements in particular that maybe really get a lot of clicks? Like if there's a dragon on it, I always joke about that. The dragon books seem to do best, but or spaceship in science fiction. Are there any must-haves or like an advantage if you have that on the cover?
We haven't. That's like a really cool thing, and we talk about it around the office. And personally, I'm a sci-fi fan, so that's something I always kind of wanted to do. But we haven't gotten around to sort of that deep of analysis. Trying to figure out a way to code the different elements that are visual elements. Dragons, how big they are, what color they are, spaceships, that kind of stuff. It's really cool to think about that stuff, but the actual statistical analysis is pretty dense, and so we haven't done that yet. So I wish I could say something, but it would all just be sort of gut and intuition. We don't have any really good data on it.
Yeah, I can imagine the database there. Purple dragon, 23% click-through rate. I can see where that would be hard.
Yeah.
All right, I pulled up the blog post I mentioned earlier. It was how to price your ebook to gain readers and maximize author earnings, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for folks. Could you tell our listeners a bit about that and kind of what you guys found as far as which price points were most effective for those two things?
Yeah, so we set out to sort of figure out what is the one best price, so you could just kind of give people the number. It turns out there isn't one. The answer is, like most things, it depends. And but I'll try to sort of give you a quick summary of what we found. Pretty much there's sort of on the spectrum of what an author is trying to accomplish with a promotion, there's really two things. There's over here, there's get more readers, and then over here, there's make more money, right? And so all the prices sort of fall somewhere in that spectrum. And the sort of rule of thumb is the less money you charge, the more readers you're going to get, but not necessarily the most revenue. And the more you charge, generally the more revenue you're going to get, but you're going to get a lot less readers. And so it really is about what you're looking to do. And so I think that for people who, I'll give you a good example, for people that have a lot of books, let's say you've got a couple of series, you've got 15, 20 books sort of that you've already published that are ready to go, that have reviews, that have a little bit of a footprint. I would recommend when you run promotions, you run them as cheap as possible, 99 cents or free. Because for you, a reader is really, really valuable, because if somebody comes and discovers you as an author, that's one of the ways that readers discover books. They find an author they like and they read all of their stuff. And so if you've got 20 books and they're all, $3, that one reader, you may give away one of those books for free, but they read 20 at $3, that's a lot of money. And so I think that the important thing is to just kind of figure out where you are in your career. And if you have, just one or two books, lower prices are better because you're trying to build that following. If you're somebody who's kind of in the middle, you're kind of established, and you're really looking to kind of harvest the readers that you've built up and that are following you, some of the higher price points are going to work. If what am I reading right now? I'm reading 70s by Neil Stephenson, and I'll probably buy kind of whatever comes out his next book. And when you get fans like that, then you can charge a little bit more for them. But you do have to do the work, and you've got to build up that catalog of books, and you've got to get it in people's hands, and getting it in people's hands usually means discounting it pretty heavily.
That definitely seems to be the case, or I would agree with all that based on what I found with my own stuff. As I mentioned earlier, lots of earlier shows, I've got like a 3-book omnibus of my first 3 books in an 8-book series that are 99 cents. And, it seems silly, like 99 cents for 3 books, that's crazy. You're not making any money even if you sell thousands of them. But I get so many people that follow through and read the rest of the series, and the books are $4 or $5, that it's really made a huge difference this year.
Yeah, and that's, we talked with Mark from Kobo, who runs Kobo Writing Life over there, and we did an interview with him. One of the things that he said is that the probability that somebody's going to read the next book in the series after they've read any given book is around 45 to 55%, which was high. I thought that was really encouraging for the authors of the world, that there's a 50% chance somebody's going to read that next book. And so from there, how many readers you think you're going to get, you just have to kind of do some of the math in your head and figure out, how sticky do you think your series is, how how engaging is that first book, and how much work did you put into it? How thirsty are people going to be for book 2? That kind of thing. But I think it's encouraging. That's one of the ways people discover books and read books is through series.
All right, one or two more questions from me, and then I'm going to pass you off to Jeff there, who's probably bored in his hotel room being rained on. But as far as the FreeBooksy site goes, I hear a lot of times from authors that free just isn't as effective as it used to be, especially with, I think, Kindle Unlimited, since all those people who are subscribers can get all the books in the catalog for free already. And I know Amazon's kind of hidden the free list. It's not, it used to be like right up there next to the paid list, the top 100s. Mm-hmm. Are you finding that that's the case? Do you think the free book ones are still working well, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I certainly understand the sentiment. I mean, we were worried about the same thing. When KU came out, is what everybody was talking about. We were worried about it. We were talking to our authors about it, because anytime Amazon makes a move, changes the landscape, we like to stay ahead of it. And we had a whole bunch of ideas, things that we were thinking about trying, but it turned out that people were still downloading books. It wasn't KU didn't cannibalize the free book market that much, and so we've seen a lot of growth, and we've seen people. Our list has been growing too, so that's part of it. But we have seen response rates pretty much hold. People are still really looking for free books, coming to them through recommendation engines like FreeBooksy and BargainBooksy. So I think that, while certainly there are some people who are pulling stuff off at KU, but I think that for a lot of people, KU is a mechanism that's not solving their problem. Their problem is, how do I figure out what my next read is? Not, I'd like more books for less money, because there's already lots of free books out there. The problem is, well, just tell me what to read, right? And so at FreeBooksy, BargainBooksy, New Books, all of our sites, that's kind of what we take. We say, okay, you know what? If you tell us what genres you like, we make sure you get good books that kind of fit your price point and your genre preferences. And I think that's what resonates with readers.
I can definitely see where it would be useful for readers. I subscribe to these services mostly because I want to spy on other authors and see how well their sales rankings are after a promotion.
Yeah, she's nosy. Excuse me, sorry.
But I totally downloaded, oh gosh, Sarah J. Maas, I think that's the author. I've never tried her books, but she had the most awesome cover today on BookBub, and that's a traditionally published author, and it's like 99 cents instead of $10, so I totally bought that. And so I can see where if you just don't want to surf around and get on Goodreads and stuff, it's a lot easier just to have recommendations sent to your inbox.
Yep.
All right, last question for me. Are you able to tell from the clicks through your mail, if you do affiliate links, if people who download the free books are going on on the same day to buy book 2 in the series for authors, or can you not tell? Does it tend to be farther out than that? Yeah,
the unfortunate thing is that we can't tell. So even if you do tag the affiliate links, Amazon doesn't give you those numbers. For BargainBooksy, we can see that stuff, but I think your question was more pointed at free. And so we get some feedback from authors. Every time somebody runs a feature with us, we send them a survey a couple days later asking them how it went, and that's where authors give us a lot of good feedback about how many downloads they got. But those are self-reported numbers, and we don't get them from everybody. So unfortunately, we don't have a really good way to kind of answer that definitively. But it is the question that everybody wants to know, and if there was a way to get it, we would certainly do it.
Obviously, we need to just get someone from Amazon on here to spill the beans about everything. I'm sure that will happen too.
I saw a guy from Amazon speak at DVW earlier this year, and very eloquent, really smart guy, didn't give a lot away. So I'm not sure having somebody from Amazon is actually going to help all that much.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing from kind of the Google developers who are, there's always these guys trying to figure out the page rank and how to rank higher in Google, and they're very evasive when they're asked questions. All right, let me hand you over to Jeff, and he's going to ask some questions, Joe's questions and his own. Joe gets his questions asked even though he's ditching us tonight.
Oh, I'm sure Joe was probably laughing his butt off near the beginning of this from New Jersey. So, all right, let's see. So, is it reasonable to assume that series starters are popular free discount books? I mean, do people have any luck promoting late series entries, do you think?
Yeah, so I think certainly beyond book 1, yes, people have a lot of success. I think when you're talking about promoting, a very long series towards the end of it, maybe not quite as well. But certainly, we've seen people, you hook a bunch of people on book one, they read it, but the other thing that happens with a lot of readers is they stock up. They hoard books on their Kindle, and maybe they've read book one and they loved it, and then they see book two, and maybe they read that, and then they kind of move on to another author, they move on to another set of books. And so promoting, book three can be like, oh yeah, I remember that series, I really liked it, like let me grab that. So I think it's a different technique than promoting book one, which is really just about sort of introducing yourself to a reader. But it can still be really effective because, especially if you've got a 6-book series or something like that, reinvigorating a reader, on book three, there's 2 or 3 more books left in the series that you can get them to read. So I think, discounting and promoting sort of the last book in your series when it's a long series, maybe if you've built up a lot of suspense and people are waiting for it, then it can be a good thing. But I'd say certainly the earlier books in your series tend to do really well.
Yeah, I've got a lot of people and fans and whatnot that tell me that sort of thing, where they have their Kindle, their e-reader, iBook, iPad, whatever, and they're like, oh, getting ready to go on vacation. I always carry like 4 or 5 books on there, and then they tell me that I kind of forget about them, and then they get an ad like, I remember that series. Don't I have that still on here? Oh yeah, there's no number 3. Okay, well they've got 4, 5, and 6 out. Beautiful, and they can do that. So I know it works. Yeah, definitely. For covers, have you found that certain genres have a higher tolerance for lackluster cover art?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, and I think it's a tough one to answer. Here's how I'll answer it. I think that there are certain genres that are very visual, like children's books, where the tolerance is incredibly low, where the pictures do a lot of the heavy lifting. Then the covers, it's really got to be sort of great. I think there isn't really like one genre who can tolerate a poor cover better than another genre that we've found. So I think the short answer is not really, that cover quality is cover quality, and it doesn't matter if it's romance or sci-fi or mystery. We've seen the 2 outliers that I'll talk about are certainly kind of the literary fiction genre has a little bit lower tolerance for poor cover design, and then I think the other thing is that the erotica audience pretty much, in erotic romance will click kind of regardless. I mean, there's a baseline level of quality, of course, but that group of readers is just really fanatical about what they're reading, and so they're a little bit less discerning in terms of some of the upfront stuff.
Yeah, especially when most of those erotica novel covers pretty much give away what's going to happen in the book. So.
Yeah, earlier I mentioned staying in the lane of your genre with cover design. So certainly those are fairly indicative of what you're going to find in the actual book.
Exactly right. Do certain genres seem to have a higher percentage of click-through? Like, for instance, do you have some genres that get more bang for their buck with the promotion, or does genre have similar performance given the same general level of quality for cover/blurb?
So that's a good question. It's a tough question, and I think that
we'll blame this one on Joe. That's his question.
I think the short answer is not really. I think in terms of the response rate, the people that do get reached, how well they react to that book is kind of the same. But there are certain, the popularity of genres matters, right? So, mystery is really, really popular. It's more popular than literary fiction. It's more popular than something sort of more niche like horror. And so you are going to see a bigger bang for your buck when you're writing into a popular genre because there's just more raw number of people to consume the book. So I think the rates hold pretty much. But in terms of, we publish our list sizes. We just started publishing our list sizes a few weeks ago. So you can go in there and you can look, and mystery and romance are right up there, and they're bigger lists. So certainly those people are going to see better returns. But we try to keep it so for the money you're still going to see a good return, even if you're in a smaller genre.
Alrighty. Speaking of genre still, of all the genres of books that you advertise or you've seen go through your website, are there any of them out there that sell better than you would have expected?
I've been doing this for about a year, and it does. You do kind of see what you expect these days. So rarely are we surprised. I think the things that are surprising for us are usually nonfiction. Things that there's a certain type of cookbook, or there's a certain type of exercise regime or something like that that is really popular that either you're not aware of or you just haven't heard of yet. One of the exciting things, I think that we don't sort of promote these types of books, but it's sort of the adult coloring book market, which is exploding. And I don't know if you've seen this, but there, you go to any sort of print bookstore, and there's tons of these adult coloring books. And you talk to people that do it, and it's a cool new thing, and I hadn't heard about it before, a couple of months ago.
And you should clarify, you don't mean adult as an X-rated erotica. It's just that designs, complex designs. The reason I know this is I just bought my wife one of these things because she loves the doodle, she loves the color. Yeah. I was like, I was looking through Amazon, and it came up with like, hey, you bought here's some coloring pencils. Have you considered this? I'm like, yeah, coloring book for adults? How cool is that? $10? Why the heck not? So, and my wife absolutely loves it. I mean, yeah, I know it works.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying when I say adult coloring books. What I mean, I do mean, coloring books for people,
Man, look at these older pictures we get to color. How cool is that? So, all right, let's see here. My next question there. Let's see. Any correlation with quality? We've already covered that there. Are there any instances in which you would deny an author from getting an ad with your website? Cover, quality, material, etc.?
Sure. So we do have editorial guidelines, for sure. For FreeBooksy and for BargainBooksy, we try to keep them really indie author friendly. So do we occasionally, reject people? Yeah. Usually for cover, usually for content, a lot of times for length. Our audience likes novels, and everybody defines that a little differently, but we kind of make an editorial call and make sure it's long enough so that it's good. But most people do get through, and we did that on purpose because we know that authors just starting out don't have a lot of options, and we wanted to be one of those options. We also run newinbooks.com, which is all about new releases, brand new books, mostly from more established independent authors or traditionally published authors. And our editorial guidelines on that site are a little heavier. And we spend a lot more time deciding whether or not a book is going to work for that site or not. But for FreeBooksy and BargainBooksy, we do have editorial guidelines, but they are sort of very indie friendly.
I'm going to ask it. I know Joe would ask this too, because he has a tendency to write really long books. You mentioned length. What's your cutoff point for the length?
You mean what's too long?
Yeah, what's too long?
That's a great question. It's not something we've run into. We almost always, when something does sort of, not fit for us editorially, it's usually too short. And so, the too long it's an interesting question. It's not something that we've come across.
Okay, so your length was requiring just too short instead of too long.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know Joe's mentioned quite a few times where he ends up trying to write a short story, ends up blossoming up to 150,000 plus and still going. So, all right. Let's see here. Okay. What type of a waiting list is there for your sites? I mean, are there some genres that fill up quicker than others?
Yeah. So certainly the more popular genres, romance specifically, usually sells out for us about a week and a half in advance, and most of the other genres are available, 2 or 3 days ahead of time, and they sell out sometimes, but not consistently. So pretty much, unless you're running a romance book with us, you can kind of go with only a couple of days lead time.
Okay. Are there any recommendations you'd make to authors who'd like to assure themselves that their ad would get the maximum exposure? Just obviously pick a genre that's well popular and try to make sure you get your ad out to as many people as possible?
Yeah, I think we talked about a little earlier about stacking your promotions together, right? And so that's really the thing that we recommend is whatever you're going to do a lot of it, do it all at once, do it on the same day if possible, or within a day or two of each other, and that's kind of the thing that's going to give you the best result. I think in terms of writing in a popular genre, we say that because that's popular, but a lot of authors, they want to write in the genre they want to write in, and we're really supportive of that, and our prices still reflect that. And so I think if you're stacking promotions, it doesn't really matter what genre you're in, you can still be successful.
All righty. That's both Joe and my questions there. Let me hand you back over to Lindsay, and she's got some more stuff for you.
Okay, great.
I did think of one question just while you were talking to Jeff there. I always wonder when I'm submitting my books to like your sites and the other sites. I think you guys might actually say don't copy the Amazon blurb. Is there any tricks or tips for writing the blurbs, or maybe it's not that you say that, but there's a minimum or maximum word count? Um, any suggestions there?
Well, I'm not a writer by trade. I'm a business person. Most of our customers are writers, and we really feel like, having people write something that's a little bit original is going to help, help the readers respond to it. And, what's on Amazon is typically what people have copy and pasted a bunch of different places throughout the web. And so we really like to have people write something original, something that's going to resonate. In terms for tips for what to write, like I said, I'm not a writer. I don't want to give you too much writing tips, but what I would say is be short, be succinct, be direct. Give people an idea of the writing style of the book in the blurb, and I think that will treat you well.
All right. And do you have any? Have you seen like that shorter blurbs do better, maybe, or that longer ones, as far as what gets clicked?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a function of how people use the internet. So people don't read very much; they scan things, and so people are going to kind of read your blurb, but a lot of people are going to scan it and kind of look at the first couple words and the last couple words, and they'll probably skip the middle. So you need to make sure that you're hitting the really important points very succinctly, because if you write it too long, it's not that it's going to be a bad blurb. It's just that a big chunk of the sort of internet population isn't going to read the end of it. And so make sure you get the important bits out in sort of the first sentence or two.
Guilty as charged. I do that all the time, where I kind of almost like I'm judging grammar style and writing style. So if something doesn't jive well within the first sentence or two, it's like, on to the next one.
Yeah, it's not necessarily fair, but you really have one sentence to hook somebody.
I didn't say it was the right thing to do. It's what I'm guilty of.
All right, and do you find there's one of your competitors, we won't mention any names on here, that actually writes the blurbs for the author? I don't know if they read the book or just kind of look at the blurb and they have a team of copywriters or something and decide what's better. And I know they've kind of analyzed on some of their blog posts, like it sells better if you say New York Times bestselling author or USA Today bestselling author. Do you see any of that do you think that's gimmicky, or do you think that is useful to include something like that?
Well, credibility goes a long way, right? Readers aren't stupid, and the New York Times bestseller or USA Today bestseller, whatever, that says, hey, somebody else has said this book is good, and that, people are trying to find their next read, and a little bit of credibility goes a wrong way. So I don't think it's gimmicky at all. I think that if you've won an award, if you've, had one of those things happen to you, talk about it. I think it's okay. I think you're trying to market your work. Don't think about it as bragging. Think about it as promoting, and that's a really important point. And as a reader, I want to know that. That helps me decide whether or not to read your book. So I think, in the blurb, that's not the time to be shy.
All right, so that goes against everything authors feel. Most of us are like, don't toot your own horn. The book should sell itself. It's the introvert mindset there.
Yep, I mean, we hear that a lot too, and so that advice I just gave you, we've given that many times, and authors are exactly like you said. A lot of times they don't want to toot their own horn, but you really do need to if you're trying to sell books. It's and like I said, as a reader, you want to know those things, so don't feel shy about writing them.
Yeah, I was just listening to another podcast last night where somebody was talking about that line from the Kevin Costner movie, if you build it, they will come. Like, what a horrible lie that is, and that people believe that. And it's like, no, you have to go out and market even if you built something awesome. So.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little hustle. That's gone a long way for a lot of our authors.
All right, well, my last few questions are just kind of a curiosity thing, if you have time to answer them. I think there's probably a lot of authors out there that have an entrepreneurial streak. They can probably pronounce it also, and are curious. They think, well, there's FreeBooksy or Kindle Nation Daily. I could start something like that, Do you have any thoughts on, or just how hard it is to get something like that going that actually turns profitable?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts, and the answer is it's really hard. I work 60 hours a week. My wife and partner, she works 60 hours a week. We've got 3 full-time people that work really hard. I think, getting a website up with WordPress or something is easy, but getting a lot of people to pay attention to you is very hard. and it takes a lot of work. And I think that, yes, that the allure is there, but I think, at least for me, you gotta focus on what you're passionate about. And I think for me, that's business. I like marketing stuff. I like building technology. I like, talking to customers and figuring out how I can help them. But if you don't like that stuff, you're going to hate building a site like that, because that's all it is. If you don't like, accounting and statistical analysis, you don't kind of get a kick out of working with numbers and trying to figure out how to make things better, it's just going to be a slog. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be a good way to spend your time. And so I think that, I'm no writer, like I said, and a lot of people that we work with are great writers. And so I think you really need to focus on what you're good at and focus on what you want to do. But if you are a business person and you like marketing and you like hustling and you like doing these things, I think there's room. I think that there's more books getting published or more books being read than ever before, and readers are having a hard time figuring out what to read, and that there's always room for more recommenders, more people who are say, hey, I have this style, or I have this way of discovering books. Don't you want to discover books with me? And we believe that, and that's why we build the websites that we build.
All right, yeah, I would definitely think it would be a huge amount of work to get it off the ground. And just as somebody, I've got several thousand people on my author newsletter, and I know I can make a good chunk of money when I send out one of my books or a recommended book just from the Amazon affiliate program, but not enough that you could ever pay somebody to do this full time, or it was not a full-time income for me for sure. So I think it would be tons of work. And I know I've kind of followed the guy that does the Fussy Librarian site, because he's very open about what he's doing and all the struggles he's going through and what he's paying for database design and things like that. So it sounds like a lot of hard work.
It is. I mean, I think any business is hard work, and writing a book is hard work too. It's just a different kind of work. And so I think you just got to pick your battles.
Know your strengths.
All right. Well, I think that's about all for the questions we have. Is there anything that you'd like to plug or share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're really working on right now, that we're really excited about, is our new site, New in Books. So you can go to newinbooks.com and you can check it out, sign up for the email newsletter. It is sort of a different take for us. These are full-price books. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. There's author interviews with some really great authors. It's not just fiction. It's mostly fiction, but there's also biography and memoir, which is something that we don't focus on with our other sites quite as much. So we've got the new Elon Musk biography, and we have an interview with that author. So there's a lot of interesting content there that's not just books. And so we're really excited about it. Go to newinbooks.com, sign up for the email, and start getting book recommendations. For authors, it's a great opportunity to promote your new book, because the reader base that we're building is exclusively interested in brand new books. And so we've just started taking features. It's still very early, so we're working with people to try to design the packages the best way we can, but we're really excited about it.
Cool.
All right, and just to be clear, was that new, like NEWEND?
Yeah, NEWIN books.com. So
okay.
It answers the question, what's new in books?
I got you. I don't want to make sure I get it here so I can put it in the show notes and people can find the site.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. New in books. I figured it out there. Even I was thinking new indie books, but no, there's new in books. Okay, so I got it.
Yep.
Jeff's faster than I am, so.
No comprendo. Hablo español solamente ahora, lo siento.
Also broadcasting from across the border, possibly. All right, that sounds like I will definitely check that out, because I often have like a new release coming out, as Jeff knows, as he'll make fun of me for.
Every week, every 2 weeks, yeah. Oh, I got another one.
But I just don't even really think of doing anything for the launch besides sending it out to my mailing list and posting on social media, because all the sites want you to discount and have 100 reviews already before you get an ad. So I'll be curious to check that out for sure.
Yeah, and new in books, we don't have a minimum review requirement. The editorial guidelines are a little bit more stringent than our other sites, but it's early, and we'd love to work with you.
All right, we'll put up the link to that in the show notes at marketingsff.com, and also to FreeBooksy and BargainBooksy. Anything else that people need to know about checking out your sites or submitting their books that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I think you guys have done a great job of pumping me for information. So hopefully that I've given you what you need, and you can learn about the company as a whole at writtenwordmedia.com, and there's a list of all of our websites there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on tonight and putting up with our slight tech issues, mostly me, as I try to push the right buttons.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. And thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.